Welcome back. If this is your return flight with you, then you'll know that this is probably my third flight in about the last 24 hours. And you've been following along. I am flying, well, I'm going to fly around the world in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. I left from Edmonton International last week. I'm flying A to B to C until I get all the way around the world. And this morning I flew from Golden, BC to Kelowna, British Columbia, where I just took off from. I'm going to make my way over the mountains, continuing west, following a flight plan over to the Coquihalla Highway, down into the Fraser Valley, and landing at Vancouver International in probably the next couple hours.
Lazy Lima 103, contact Vancouver Center on 133.5.
My call sign is Lazy. Plane's name is Pixel.
Lazy Lima 103, acknowledge last transmission.
One three 3.5 Lazy Lima 103.
My website is
Vancouver Center Lazy Lima 103 is climbing through 2,300 feet for 12,000 feet.
Lazy Lima 103, Vancouver Center, continue to arrange this plan. Altimeter 29.89.
my website is pixellazy.ca, Pixelazy.ca, and I'm tracking every single one of my flights as I work my way on this world tour. Flying over Kelowna, British Columbia right now. It's shortly after lunch, about 20 after 12 Pacific Standard Time. And I'm coming to you from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, in real life. Last October, I drove with my family out here from Edmonton. We came out to visit some relatives who live up in the mountains just onto the left side of the wing there. And I ran in a half marathon that left from the park that's just at my left wingtip there, looped along the coast coming up towards the plain, looped back along the lake coast, basically down to where that little triangle tip is down there, and then back to the park. That was 21 kilometers. Probably one of my better times last year, actually. But as we leave Kelowna, I'm going to try and get on my flight path, and I'll check in with you when we're a little farther along. So I'm working my way up to about 12,000 feet right now as I pass over the interior of British Columbia. Kind of working my way over to Merritt, which is a small town just off the Coquihalla Highway. The highway is a toll road over a mountain pass, essentially leads into Vancouver. So that drops out of the mountains into the Fraser Valley, and drives right into downtown Vancouver essentially. and right now I just seem to be passing over some forestry lands, some low-lying mountains, just about at 10,000 feet here, some light cloud cover. So I'm not a professional pilot. I'm also not a professional
Lazy
YouTuber.
Lima 10 tree, contact Vancouver Center on 135.0.
135.0 Lazy Lima 10 tree. Vancouver Center Lazy Lima 10 tree is at 10,100 feet, climbing 12,000 feet.
Lazy Lima 10 tree, Vancouver Center, continue to Marin as planned. Altimeter 29.90.
I'm just a guy who's decided that I want to spend some time during this period of COVID pandemic when we can't really travel much of anywhere outside of our local areas. Family and I just got back from a trip to the mountains, which sort of inspired the start of my trip in this virtual airplane. But for the most part, we can't cross borders. We definitely can't cross international borders. Discouraged from traveling too much. Discouraged from being a tourist at this time. So I thought I'd take a trip in this amazing new simulator, which is a full simulation of the planet Earth and all its locations, created from satellite data, created from topographical data, using artificial intelligence to sort of generate an entire copy of the planet that you can fly around in, no matter how experienced you are as a pilot. And if you watch these videos, this will be video number 4, you'll quickly see that I'm just a guy, I'm not a pilot. I see a lot of these videos out there, professional pilot does this and professional pilot does that, and guys that have been flight simming for a long time. And to be fair, I've been flight simming since I think version 2 of this software, which was in the 80s. It was essentially just line vector art, little pink triangles going across little blue triangles, and that was supposed to be an airplane. But, I sort of lost interest when Flight Sim 10 came out, and I played it for a while, and it was about 15 years ago, 10 or 15 years ago, and I played it for a while, but, it was mostly just bitmap textures that repeated over and over. You'd never see landscapes like this. If I'd flown from anywhere outside of my hometown, my home city, it would have just been the same repeating patterns over and over and over again, and a little map telling me where I was, and eventually I'd land somewhere, and it just wasn't very inspiring. So when this new software was announced, one of the first things I thought was, well, that's just incentive to fly anywhere and everywhere, but where do you begin? Where do you start? You just load up some famous places and fly around, or what? So instead, I thought, well, what if I really had an airplane? What would I do? Well, I wouldn't drive it somewhere and fly out of random airports. I'd get in the plane and I'd start flying. Eventually I'd run out of money and fuel and time. But in a virtual plane, you can just fly from location to location and look at the landscape and see the world. And the bonus is, as I fly over some familiar places I've been, like I've driven on that highway you see down below the left wing tip there. I've driven that a couple of years ago, and this is what the landscape looks like, as much as I can remember. So when you see familiar things, to go out into the whole world, places you've never been, to fly places I'd like to go, gives me hope that I'll see things at least representing what I would see if I actually made it there. And since none of us can go anywhere right now, this is good opportunity. Not a perfect substitute, but definitely better than no substitute. I'm flowing past Merritt now, and I was going to take the Coquihalla Highway down into the Fraser Valley, but my flight plan seems to be pretty strict, and ATC keeps yelling at me every time I deviate too far off my course, so I guess I am following a different route, down past Boston Bar and along this other highway route into Hope. I've never driven this way, so this is all new to me. And I'm cruising along at about 14,000 feet, which is just above the cloud layer. So it's some pretty high altitude right now, and as you can see, there's like 15 other players in the simulator in the Fraser Valley over there. I'm assuming that's about where they are. So maybe I'll encounter some of those people as I get closer down into the valley. I'll check in when I get closer to Hope. So I just wanted to also add that right below me there, as I fly down this is actually Trans-Canada Highway, Highway number 1. A highway that goes all the way across the country. I followed that a little bit this morning when I was flying from Golden to Kelowna, and kind of veered off away from that. But the alternate route is just off on the left-hand side of the screen.
103, please expedite your climb to 14,000 feet.
And that's the multi-lane Coquihalla Highway, which is a high-speed highway overpass over the mountains. It's also a toll road. But if you want to drive for free, you got to take the number 1, which is this one down there below. It's a little bit of a smaller road, a little bit of a slower road, but probably just as scenic.
Maintain 6,000 feet, Lazy Lima 103.
So I'm pretty much over the mountains, and I'm pulling into the Fraser Valley here. That's Hope, BC. You can see below me. And it's the Fraser River. I'm following the Fraser River, I guess, for the last little while. And this is the Fraser River Delta, which opens out just into the ocean just south of Vancouver, British Columbia. Again, another familiar place for me. I spent 3 years living out here. Made countless trips past Hope on the highway there. And yeah, the next few stops are going to be Mission, Abbotsford, Coquitlam, right into Vancouver. Or actually right into Richmond.
Caribbean 811 is at flight level 235, descending 10,000 feet.
I've requested a lower cruising altitude.
Vancouver Center, continue as planned.
Figure 6,000 feet should be good for the next little while, and then eventually I'll drop down and cruise right into the airport, which is right on the coast. See the airfield at Hope. We're just kind of flying right over that right now. of players out in Vancouver right now.
Descend and maintain 10,000 feet, Aero Caribbean 811. Vancouver Center on 125.9 25.9 West Jet 165. Lazy Lima 103, you are 300 feet above your assigned altitude. Descend and maintain 6,000 feet, altimeter 29.907.
I'm certainly getting
Descend
yelled
and
at a
maintain
lot more.
6,000 feet, Lazy Lima 103.
I don't know if you can see the little spark up in the kind of middle left quadrant, upper left quadrant. But I think that's another aircraft. I've seen a few, but I've certainly been flying in places that are a lot less populated and a lot less popular. Kind of flying over the Fraser Valley here, kind of on approach to Vancouver. It's the Fraser River. It's been a while since I've been down here, but it could be something like Coquitlam. One of those small communities.
November, you are 2,200 feet above your assigned altitude. Descend and maintain 10,000 feet, altimeter 29.907.
I think if you also look up on the mountain range on the left side, that could be Mount Rainier down in Washington. I'm just speculating, but it usually is the one that sticks up the highest above everything else. You can see it for a couple hundred kilometers, especially at this altitude. I'm a little bit off course because I'm following the Fraser Valley rather than going over the mountains over there, which is what my flight plan wants me to do. It's a more direct flight, but this is obviously much more scenic. I kind of want to fly over Langley and Surrey and Abbotsford, Burnaby even. And so I'm going to swoop back up, go a little bit more west than south, maybe a little bit north from here. And I'll check in when I get closer to some of the bigger cities. So up until about a minute ago, the air traffic control was yelling at me to climb to 14,000 feet, so I tried climbing to 14,000 feet. And I got to about 8,000 feet, and he immediately turned around and said, descend in 3,000 feet. So I am 38.5 miles out of Vancouver International, and I'm now attempting to drop my altitude down to about 3,000 feet. Do a little swoop over the lower mainland here, approaching Greater Vancouver area. And this isn't entirely familiar right now, but I think the closer I get to the coast, the more familiar it will begin to look. I'm really kind of interested to veer off my flight plan a little bit and go check out my old apartment. I think I'm going to have to be a lot closer to the ground to make it out. But yeah, we're definitely getting close to Vancouver.
approach on 120.8.
Going to 120.8 Lazy Lima 10 tree. Vancouver approach Lazy Lima 10 tree, 3,000 feet.
Lazy Lima 10 tree, Vancouver approach, continue descend as planned. Altimeter tree 0.02. Lazy Lima 10 tree traffic is 12 o'clock 3 miles at 4,900 feet generic. Report them in sight.
Lazy Lima 10 tree, have the generic in sight.
So apparently there's a Air Canada flight landing just ahead of me.
Vancouver approach Air Canada 111 is out of 4,800 feet for 3,000 feet. Air Canada 111 Vancouver approach, continue to knock up as planned. Altimeter tree 0.02.
Even though there's like 30 other planes
Air
about
Canada
there.
111 traffic is 7 o'clock 2 miles at 3,200 feet Cessna Skyhawk. Report them in sight.
Yeah, they appear to be parked or whatever, but it doesn't seem to care about any of those guys. It only seems to care about the Air Canada flight, which
Air Canada 111 have the Cessna Skyhawk in sight.
apparently that's real traffic. So this is real air traffic that's happening in the real world. So this plane is actually landing right now, or probably within a couple minutes of right now. I'm coming up on Vancouver proper. So there's a big, underneath those clouds, under my right wingtip, there's a big bridge that was built in the early 2000s. It's a big toll bridge. Once you get there, you're kind of in.
Air Canada 111, you are 17 miles east. Descend and maintain 3,000 feet. Expect ILS runway 26 left approach via safe transition. Cleared to saved.
You're basically in
Lazy Lima 10 traffic is
the
9
main
o'clock
part of
1
Vancouver.
miles at 4,500 feet generic. Report them in sight. Air Canada 111, descend and maintain 3,000 feet.
Lazy Lima 10 tree, have the traffic.
So normally I don't think I'd let this video just run, but we're coming up on some space here that is very familiar. Should be very familiar for me anyways. Right kind of at the tip of where my propeller is where I used to live. I lived there for about 2 years. Right off the right wing is Burnaby Mountain. There's a university up there. And then I'd take the SkyTrain, which I can sort of see the line. My right tail then is pointing at one of the stations I just passed. There's a shopping mall down there. I think I'd be able to remember the names of these places, but it's been a while. I haven't lived here in about 16 years. But I'm just going to cruise on in. I've got about 11 miles till I need to land. I'm going to swoop in over Vancouver. Air traffic control isn't quite yelling at me yet for my altitude, which is admittedly a little low. It's high rises just at the edge of the.
Lazy Lima 103, you are 12 miles east of Vancouver. Contact Vancouver Tower on 118.7 when inbound.
So on the left of the screen and now the right of the
Tower
screen.
on 118.7 Lazy
It's
Lima
Burnaby
10
South.
tree.
Encore tree 106, cleared to land runway 26 left. Follow the aircraft on final. Wind 282 at 12.
Vancouver Tower, Lazy Lima 10 tree, 11 miles east inbound ILS runway 26 left approach.
Lazy Lima 103 Vancouver Tower. Cleared ILS runway 26 left approach. Altimeter tree 0.03, wind 282 at 12. Cleared to land runway 26 left encore, tree 106.
Cleared ILS runway 26 left approach, Lazy Lima 103.
There's some buildings just at my nose tip there. One of those was my apartment. Pretty sure. Get a little lower than I should, and do a little flyover. Yeah, there's the train station. That weird angular looking building. That's not really what it looks like. Building just now at the nose. That was where I lived for 2 years. I don't mind telling you that because I haven't lived there in 17 years or 16 years. It's been a while, so no big deal. On my left wing there, that's I believe that is some of the Vancouver studios. They film things. I think that's where they filmed the X-Files. If you're old enough to remember that. I've been rewatching those. Not as good as I remember. Still pretty good, but not as good as I remember. And we're coming up on downtown Vancouver. The airport is actually quite a ways south of here. It's in Richmond, just south of Vancouver. I'm just going to do a swoop over Falls Creek and then head down to the airport. Oh, there's a cruise ship in port. There's Stanley Park. The Lionsgate Bridge connecting that park over to the to North Van. We'll just do a little swoop and have a look.
Encore tree 203, cleared to land runway 26 left. Number 2 for landing. Follow the aircraft on final. Wind 282 at 12. Cleared to land runway 26 left, number 2, Encore tree 203.
They've done some serious work rendering this all out. Some of this looks quite accurate. That big pointy white building is the Canada Place. It's a cruise ship terminal. This all leads out into English Bay, if I remember. That's really quite cool.
Encore tree 106, turn next taxiway.
Just going to take some pictures. Unfortunately, to take screenshots, I have to change the focus of the mouse. It's kind of a pain, so I lose control of the airplane for a few seconds while I do that. There's the Lionsgate Bridge, flying over Stanley Park. See my shadow down there.
Encore tree 106, turn next taxiway.
Make a sharp turn and head back to the airport.
Encore tree 106, turn next taxiway.
This is actually really impressive. I do miss living here. It was a neat city to live in. Just really expensive. Really expensive. When you're in your early 20s, it kind of chews away at every single penny you have just to be here. Looks like Kelowna Beach just up ahead.
Encore tree 106, exit runway when able.
Lots of hours spent on Kitts Beach. Looks like there's a lot of planes at the airport today.
Encore tree 106, contact ground on 127.15. Encore tree 106.
Put my flaps down. That'll help me land a little bit easier. Some of the advice I've been reading online in the meantime. Just flying over. This is Vancouver, I guess. The main part of Vancouver. Big old dense city. Oh, little screen freeze there. It's done that a couple times. I think I'm running something in the background that's confusing it. But there you are, there's the airport right ahead. We'll be landed in just a minute or so. Got about 3 miles to go. Should be getting a flight path. Maybe some instructions would be helpful. Otherwise, I'm just going to land. I have a big map open on my other screen so I can see where I'm going, and there's about 4 planes landing right now at this airport, which is basically the most I've seen in this game anywhere, but it makes sense since I'm in a much more populated area, much more well-known location. Going to circle around until I get flight clearance. I'll start this video up again as soon as that happens. So that took about 10 minutes, but I've now managed to get clearance to land. So we're going to give this a try.
Encore tree 203, turn turn next taxiway.
Get those engines down. Trim down a little bit. Go into my cockpit view. Again, we're going too fast.
Encore tree 203, exit runway when able. Encore tree 203, contact ground on 121.7.
It says we're going too fast, but it's only like
Going to 121.7, Encore
10
tree
miles per hour
203.
too fast. It's not that bad. I think we're lined up here. I'm going to go to my other view. Ground traffic going on, plane waiting to taxi out onto the runway. Nose up a little bit. Whoa, that's not good, dude. Wasn't expecting a plane there. I think we've touched down. Guy's still behind me. Go find the taxiway and then we're pretty much done. So this is probably another long video. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. This is my third video in 24 hours. But again, I'm on vacation here, so spending a lot more time than I normally would.
103, exit runway when able.
And there's my exit. Right off the taxiway.
Lazy Lima 103, contact ground on 121.7.
Again, I'm
121.7 for Lazy Lima
posting all my
103.
flights as I make my way around the world in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. This was leg 4, now flowing all the way from Edmonton to Vancouver, which isn't very far, but it's just 4 legs of a lot of legs of a trip. Let me know if you think there's anything I should try and visit as I make my way around. You can make a comment or just say hi. I'm going to try and get to the end of the runway here, but until that happens, I'm in my parking spot anyways. Thanks for watching. See you next time.